Hey everyone, this is GKCS. Today we have a very special guest with us, and that's Eddie. Eddie is the inventor or the founder of Eddie Hub on GitHub. He's the GitHub Star of the Year, which tells you how much he knows about open source. And Eddie, would you like to talk about me too? Yeah.
Sure. So, I'm. Say that again. Sorry.
No, I was just kidding. I wanted to throw you off by asking you to introduce me. But
I was going to try.
okay.
I probably wouldn't do
sure.
it justice. Well, I was just going to say
No,
thank you so much for having me here. I mean, your channel's awesome. I've seen some of the awesome videos you've done. I saw Shreya's one. I saw Kunal's one. And it's just, so cool to be here and geek out with you and geek out with your community as well.
Awesome. So, also, Eddie, before we start this live stream, I just want to give people an idea of what we are going to do. We are going to be talking to Eddie about open source, about why it's important, about how we can start, and possibly how we can take this multiple communities there, which are doing great work. We can take them forward. But before we start, Eddie has a project, should I say, which is called Eddie Hub. It's an entire community, which is Eddie Hub. You can check out his YouTube page for more details. But there's some awesome APIs that they have made, and you can check them out. It's a community-based thing, so it's fun.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that shout out.
Awesome. So now comes the tough part, which is the difficult questions. Okay. So Eddie, firstly, what is open source? And let's imagine that we have never heard of open source, or even before that, let's imagine somebody who's heard of open source but is not sure about how to start or about what it really means.
Sure. I mean, the way I explain it to my parents, who still don't get it, they always say, "Why would you give stuff away for free?" I say it's like social media. Let's take Instagram for an example. You share your picture. So on GitHub, you share your code. And on Instagram, someone can like your picture, and on GitHub, someone can star your project. And people can put comments on Instagram, people can put comments on GitHub, but what you can do is you can take it so much further and actually take a fork, a copy of the project, and make changes and then add value back and make contributions. So it's like social media. It's a social coding platform, but on steroids. And to be honest, it's moved such a long way since just coding. And that's why in the Eddie Hub community, we say collaboration first, code second, because you start a discussion, you talk about some ideas with the community, and that's collaboration. And then once you've kind of got a few ideas of actions, you might create 1 or 2 or 3 issues, the action point. Again, that's collaboration, because you're going to collaborate on how you're going to perform those changes. And then you raise a pull request, which is effectively like an issue, like a ticket, but with some changes to the repository applied to it. I specifically didn't say code because a lot of repositories now have documentation, automated testing. There's so many more things to it. And then on the pull request, like an issue, like I said, it has changes with it. And then you're going to collaborate on the changes that have been made. So it's kind of like, pre-changes, talk about the changes, and then post-changes. And so it's really a lot of collaboration. And that's why I think a lot of companies now, when they're hiring, they're looking for people's communication skills, collaboration skills, because tech skills can be taught more easily than trying to teach someone how to collaborate. So open source, I believe, is more about collaboration. Yeah, and then kind of code is more of a secondary, is where I'd explain open source. And, open source has been around for ages, way before GitHub. I was involved in open source, before there was even Git and GitHub and pull requests. It was quite a minefield before. It was quite hard. Everyone had their own servers and different version control systems and all the rest. So GitHub has definitely made it a lot, easier and more collaborative, which is amazing. It has been around for a long time, but now it's more mainstream. I don't think there is, we all probably use open source without even realizing it. My dad with an Android phone, he's using open source. He doesn't even know he's using open source. And I think, that's, even if you're using, I don't know, something like, let me try to think, Sky, if you've got Sky TV, I bet you they're using something that is open source somewhere in their network. They must do. There's no way that you can't, because otherwise you have to probably build everything from scratch or, buy some rubbish software.
No, that makes total sense. In fact, the company that I started with recently, Interview Ready, that uses almost everything open source. And then whenever we have an issue, we first think about open source. Now that you mention it, there's entire databases which is open source, which I would never think would happen if I was, let's say, born 50 years ago and someone would come and tell me that databases can be open source. Well, there's so much intellectual property and so much effort involved in getting that software right. And if people are dedicated to create something like a database and then give it out for free, that's something which is shocking. That's amazing. It's an amazing time to be alive. And
it is. You're right, and I think it's only getting better and better with the latest GitHub features, like things like Copilot and all the other amazing features that we got coming out. And these projects that are open source are just getting better and better and better because they've just got so many different points of view and perspectives. And anyone, there is no gatekeeping, no barrier to entry. All these people in the audience, you've got like over 100 people watching now. They could all contribute and get involved in open source. And we're going to get to why you should shortly. I don't want to jump ahead. I get too excited sometimes. But we'll explain why you should. But they can, right? They can try and start the project locally. If they realize something doesn't quite work or there's an extra step they took, they could improve the documentation. There is just so many things that they could add value on. If someone logs a bug and they've got the same bug, but they're on a different browser or different operating system, then they can reinforce that bug and say, yes, I've got that on these criteria, or I haven't got it on these criteria, and so forth. And that's where everyone can get involved and really stand out.
Wow, amazing. And in fact, do you think that do you see any parallels between open source and stuff like YouTube, which is also to some extent community driven and is a place where the community is so strong that it's able to actually challenge companies by offering the same stuff, maybe better, for free? So that one of the things where YouTube does extremely well now is education, and it also does really well in niche products. So maybe I'm drawing too many parallels, but it does look like open source is pretty interesting. Yeah. Okay.
It is. It's underpinned everywhere, and you're right. There is quite a link between open source and GitHub. In most tutorials and GitHub videos are on open source projects. You don't see anybody doing anything really on proprietary, products. They're doing it on, I don't know, Cassandra database, Mongo, Elasticsearch, going to databases, or going to kind of all the way to front-end frameworks, React, Angular, Vue, Next, Nux. I mean, there's just so many things, and that's what people are doing it on. And so there definitely is a massive overlap. And then if you throw Twitter in there as well, I think that kind of makes it quite interesting. And then Discord as well, because people are always chatting between videos and live streams. It is, like you said, such an interesting time to be alive. There's so many exciting things going on at the moment.
True. So, Eddie, you have given us a good idea about why should we get involved in open source. It seems super exciting. But are there some other things that also we should keep in mind when we are getting involved in open source?
Yes. I mean, there's quite a few things. So you'll have to stop me when everyone starts falling asleep. But it's GitHub is becoming our CV more and more. Like when I hire for my clients, be it clients in America or in the UK or somewhere in Europe, or even India and so forth, the first thing I do is, a resume. People can write whatever they want on it. They can say, hey, I built this amazing project. It's like, great. I could, you can say whatever you want. So I want to see not necessarily proof of their coding. I want to see more about their collaboration and attitude. And the way I can see that is on GitHub. So GitHub is becoming more and more our CV. And so that's really important. But I also see a lot of people only having 100% commits. That's all they do on GitHub. And I think that's what's valuable. And to be honest, that's not. Because yes, I will look at their code today, but it doesn't matter like what state it's in. I want to see that it's improved from, say, 6 months ago. So it's important to have like that longevity, the marathon, not the sprint. I don't want to see like 1,000 commits in 3 days because they're job hunting or whatever, or been to a hackathon. I want to see it, spread out over time. And then I want to see the collaboration. Like, how do they raise an issue? How do they reply to an issue? How do they raise a pull request? How do they reply to a pull request? How do they review other people's work? How do they communicate? I mean, I interviewed one person who was a great great coder, amazing, way better than me. But when my client said, what do you think? I said, great coder, amazing. But look how they collaborate with people. And it was just awful and horrendous. And they wouldn't fit within the team. And so I think people need to demonstrate, they need to spend enough time raising issues, like 25% of your time raising issues, 25% of your time reviewing pull requests. People can review other people's work, even if they're not a maintainer on the project. And that adds so much value. I love it when there's a new person, like let me sidestep here. If when we get a new person to an open source project, or a new person to a client project, whatever it is, I do the same thing. I say to them, look at the project, try and get it up and running, try and understand what the project does. If you can't do it, there is nothing wrong with you, there is something wrong with the project. And that's how we can improve it for the next person. So you mentioned our API project in Github. If people want to get involved in that, or they don't want to necessarily get involved in the coding side, they want to get involved in the collaboration side, please come and have a look. If something doesn't make sense, start a discussion, raise an issue, and let's improve it for the next person. And that's how and why open source projects kind of get better and better. And by doing that, people don't realize that they're contributing to their GitHub profile, which then allows them to stand out more, which then when they apply for a job, of course, these places are going to Google you and see what you're up to. And hopefully, your GitHub comes near the top and they can see the great activity and collaboration that you've been doing. So definitely get involved. I mean, we just look in the chat and, it's going great, the chat. If people can write, do they get involved in open source? And if not, why not? Are they scared? Do they not have time? I'd be really interested to know if we can try and help them a bit and see if we can, focus on some of those. But yeah, it's so beneficial. I learned so much from getting involved in open source, like so much.
That's very interesting, Eddie. That now that you say it, that because there are clear benefits of contributing to open source, it just doesn't help, let's say, the community. It actually builds you while you're building the community. It's one of the most basic things, like to fix the world, you have to first fix yourself. And so when you involve yourself in these things, this seems like a really, really good idea. So why aren't people going for this? I think this is my personal experience and a lot of anecdotes. But a lot of people, before they start with open source, they think about how is this useful? That is A. I think we have discussed that. But they also think about B. Will I ever become famous, or will I be able to make a name in open source? So unless I do that, my profile will not stand out. And in which case, this is all wasted effort. Why don't I go for an internship? Is a good idea, but why don't I just do competitive programming? It's a very popular thing in India here. What happens is there's a bunch of questions in some coding contests, some website. They attempt those questions and then they get a rank based on how many they solved. So that's the way that we rank ourselves, or we measure our progress. That's most of Indian colleges right now. The opportunities are few. Yeah, and the job opportunities are actually really, really numbered in that sense compared to the number of aspirants. So they are very, very methodical in the way in which they prepare. And competitive programming seems like a great idea in that sense, but I would definitely like to see more people in open source, because it's something which builds you. It just doesn't prepare you for a job. It's actually something that helps you long term.
Yeah, there's just so many benefits. I mean, if a client came to me and say, Eddie, we need help interviewing candidates, and you've got these two candidates, we like both of them. One is great at open source and one is great at competitive programming. I'm going to choose the open source person because they're more rounded, right? They know how to get involved in tech. They know how to make their project inclusive by having documentation, planning issues with labels, explaining things. Like one of the interview secrets I give away now is I ask people to talk about their project or one of our projects or something, any project, and we talk about an improvement, and then I ask them to raise an issue, and immediately I can see if someone has contributed to open source or not, because someone who hasn't will write in the issue, following our discussion, I'll do A. And it's like, okay, well, tomorrow I'm going to forget the discussion because my memory is terrible and I would have had 100 discussions since then. And two, anyone who wasn't involved in the discussion is not going to know what you're talking about. Whereas someone who contributes to open source would quote a bit of the discussion and then say, following our discussion above, I would choose option A. But they've given context. And that adds so much value. And so I think we've contributed to open source over competitive programming is that it's more realistic, it's more real life. That's what you're going to do in a job. Whereas competitive programming, you're not competing against the person sitting next to you in a team. You're working with them. You're going to be pairing with them. You're going to be solving bugs together. And I think, open source is about quality, not speed, because you don't want to create all this technical debt. And then, the first month you'll go super fast, and then the second month you'll go 10 times slower because you've created all this technical debt. I know people in the chat asked about automation and DevOps and so forth. And again, this is where open source really excels, and the people who do it excel as well, because they need to think about, well, I've had so many pull requests and I'm kind of telling people to adjust the formatting. Maybe there's some way I can do it better. I can use a linter. Okay, great. But no one's running the linter before they commit. Right, I can use GitHub Actions to run the lint so the person who raised the pull request can get feedback. So we can still have the collaboration and the discussion, but we're not talking about spaces and tabs and formatting. We're talking about the actual, the more important and valuable stuff. And then from there you go, right, I'm getting so many pull requests for my projects. I don't want to keep manually deploying it and so forth. Right, let me automate the deployment. So as a front-end developer, back-end developer, full-stack developer, it doesn't really matter that they're going to want to start automating things more and more. And that's what open source, I think, teaches us, rather than can I write a for loop more efficiently to sort this big data set or whatever, or something like that, which is good. I'm not trying to say it's bad, but it's more... like you said, competitive programming rather than a realistic work environment. And that clients, they want the realistic working environment. I mean, if you took a pilot, for example, take it away from coding. If you took it as a pilot, would you rather the pilot flew you in a plane who was really good at the flight simulator and could land really fast, or a pilot who actually goes out and flies a real plane? I think I'd rather have the pilot who flies a real plane. It might take a few more minutes to land the plane, but they're going to land it safely and have done it for real. So I guess that's my analogy for the two.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's one of the strange things. Although you took a really exaggerated analogy, it still makes sense. That's how crazy computer programming is. But I see a lot of questions in the chat, which is about how do we start with open source. But I'm going to do some mind reading now and try to change the question to, I think my code sucks. So the code quality of mine is, let's say I'm a person who wants to contribute to open source, but I know that my code quality is usually very bad. That's problem number one. And problem number two is, hey, what if I get ignored when I send a request to fix a bug or just add some documentation or stuff?
These are those two questions.
Yeah,
I love those two questions because so many people think that as well, and so this is great. So the first question was, my code sucks. Brilliant. Yeah. My code sucks too. Seriously, my code does suck. And the great thing about open source is and same with YouTube and so forth, we're there to start the conversation and say, here's a starting point. Because how can you discuss something if you don't know what it is? I can say to you, I've got this idea, it's about code, and it's going to code some stuff, and it's going to code some stuff, and it's going to have a line and another line and a loop. It's like, what? So let's put some code out there, and it's going to suck. Right? And it will suck, not because people's code sucks, but because we're always learning. So I look at my code from literally 2 weeks ago and I think, what idiot wrote this? Look at the git blame and it's like Eddie, and I'm like, shit, that was me. Because we're always learning. And I think if your code sucks, that's good, because you're learning all the time. And that's what we need to do in tech. We need to learn all the time. Things are changing. And the great thing about putting it out there is people will give you feedback, and it could be someone more experienced. It could be someone less experienced, but they might have a different perspective or see a different example. I mean, again, sorry to kind of shout out EddieHub, but in EddieHub, we believe that everyone is a mentor as well as a mentee. Because if you're 1 week into your adventures, there is someone who's only 1 day in, and you can help them, and you will learn so much by being on the flip side. So in the same with open source, if you're always contributing, it's great to be a maintainer. I mean, it might just be for your customized GitHub profile, but you are a maintainer. And when people raise issues and raise pull requests, you might think, oh, that wasn't very clear. Let me ask questions to go back and forth. When you raise your contribution or your issue, your pull request, you will raise it better because you'll know you're seeing the pitfalls when you receive it. And that kind of dovetails into your second question, which is, my stuff's getting ignored. Well, it's probably getting ignored because it's not very understandable, it's not very clear. You haven't given context. And so you might just submit a pull request and it's got some changes in it. Well, great. They've probably had a template in the pull request. Use the template that they provide you. Make it easier for the maintainer by saying it's related to this issue, and then you can put like closes the issue number in the pull request. So when the pull request is merged or closed, it closes the issue. It makes the admin easier for the maintainers. Add screenshots, but the only way to learn that is by doing it, right? If you go, I could tell people here for like 10 hours all the best practices, and they'll pick up bits and pieces, but they're going to learn so much more by doing it. Even if you've got like an Olympian athlete to go to the gym with you and you just watch them train, there's only so much you're going to learn by watching someone else. You just got to do it. You're going to feel sore, you're going to do it wrong, but you're going to learn from it. And so I just encourage everyone today to do something contributing to open source. And it could be raising an idea on the GitHub. Like, you get a green square for raising an issue. You get a green square for starting a discussion. You get a green square for a commit. You get a green square for raising a point. Like, there's so many things you get green squares for. And green squares, I'm not saying they're important, but they're the first impression that people see when they come to your profile. So if you want them to dig deeper into the awesome stuff you're doing, or all the awesome collaboration, then you need to just have some green squares to make people want to dig further. Because it's a bit quiet, they're going to think, well, there's no point digging further. So hopefully I answered those two questions. If I didn't, please let me know. I can dig in even deeper, but I just really want to encourage everybody to get started. And you can't make any mistakes. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? And if you do think that, if you're scared about the worst thing that's going to happen, go to our support repo in the Eddie Hub community in the organization. Not the API one, maybe the support one, and just raise an issue and just say, I'm practicing, and we'll close it. But you'll still get the green square, and I promise you'll still have dinner tonight, and I promise you'll still be fine, you'll still be healthy, everything will be fine, the sun will still rise tomorrow. So that's the worst thing that can happen, like if someone closes it. But if I can add one more thing, sorry, I know I talk too much, but I get really excited about open source.
That's really fine.
If you are a bit...
Yeah, please.
If people are a bit nervous about contributing to open source projects, they're not sure how inclusive the project is, just some quick tips. Check they've got a code of conduct, check they've got a contributing file, and go to the pull request tab on GitHub, and go to the closed pull requests, and then you'll see the list, and there'll be a mix on that list of merged and closed. Merged will be with a purple icon, and closed will be the red icon. Go to the closed ones, and see if they've been closed in a friendly way, saying, thank you very much for your contribution, but this is not something we want right now. Have a look at our issues. That's fine. It's okay for the maintainer to close it, but you don't want to work on a project where they just close it without a comment because you don't know why they didn't like it. Was it not good enough? Was it just something they didn't want in the project? So when you want to contribute to a project, check for the closed pull request and just make sure they're friendly. And that's the thing. I think otherwise it's demotivating, even for me, if I spend time on a pull request and someone closes it without telling me why. I'm a bit like, So yeah, pick some good projects that you want to contribute to. Yeah,
it feels like you send this really long, well thought out email and then there's no reply. That's just probably actually having your pull request closed without reason feels worse because you actually put a lot of extra effort in that. But yes, I totally agree with you on that, Eddie. It's like free training. It's the first 2 months of joining an organization is usually about, hey, how can you collaborate? How do you communicate effectively? How do you document things so that it's a form of communication? It's a form of long-term communication. And all of this stuff is out there for free. You can learn and help yourself and help everyone around you. So that's great. Exactly. Shushmita Joshi is asking, how do you find or select a particular open source project which matches with the tech stack that we have? And which you can contribute to efficiently.
Love this question.
I can see one assumption over there, but yes, yeah.
I love this question. That to find a project you want to contribute to, there are a few different ways, and then we'll dig it deeper into one. So one, like I said, I've got some community projects. I'm sure your friends and your colleagues and peers and so forth all have projects. You could contribute to those. You can also search on GitHub. So right at the top, on the top bar, there is issues. If you click on that, it's going to list your issues that you've raised across GitHub. But if you clear the search box, you can filter now by labels, like good first issue, and then you can also filter by language. So you can put Python, JavaScript, TypeScript, whatever you wanted. And then a whole list of repositories across GitHub are going to appear. And then what I recommend is find one that has a few factors. One that, like I said, has closed pull requests that are friendly, have been closed in a friendly way. But also check the commit frequency goes with your commit frequency, if that makes sense. Now, let me explain that better. Make sure the commit frequency is at the speed that you're comfortable with. Like if you find Kubernetes or React or something like that, the commit speed is so huge that you're going to end up with a lot of conflicts. Because if I give an example, if you make some changes today, because of time zones and effort and all the rest, and people are being busy, someone might not review it for 1 or 2 days. When they get back to you, again, because of time zones and you being busy, you might not get it back till 2 days later to make those changes. So like 4 or 5 days have gone by. By then, so many other pull requests and commits have gone in. The second changes you've made to make your pull request get accepted has probably now got conflicts in that date. And that's really disheartening to kind of get in that kind of loop, because that project moves so fast. So I would suggest to people to contribute to a project that goes at a speed they're comfortable with. And if they start with a project now that's going slower and it's going too slow for them, they can change projects later on and go to faster projects and so forth. But don't try and commit to the biggest and fastest projects, because I think it's just very hard, and you won't get the attention that you need. If you say, hey, I want to work on this issue, can someone help me? They're going to be like, well, no, because if I help you, you might disappear tomorrow. Whereas if you get used to other projects that are smaller, people can help you. And then once you start adding value, people want to help you more. Like we've got people contributing to our projects on EddieHub, and we jump on calls and pair program on live streams, or just jump on a Discord call and work through a bug with them. And people sometimes do say to me, hey, Eddie, how come you jumped on a call with them? But for me, you won't. It's like, well, I don't know you. You haven't contributed yet. You might disappear tomorrow. Whereas these people still might disappear in the future, and that's fine. But at the moment, they're adding value to the project and the community, so I want to support in any way I can. And as soon as other people start helping other people and start adding value to the projects, again, it doesn't have to be code. It could be adding issues or reviewing people's issues, or giving feedback and so forth. Then you spend more time with them. So it's kind of like this. It just gets better and better. Let's just say that as you add more value to a project and the community, they will add more value to you, and it just gets better and stronger. And you just make so many amazing friends around the world.
Awesome. I had a thought in my head, but so the only way that you can have people long-term project members leave is either there's some special event or they get hit by a bus. So yeah, those are the kind of people you want in a project.
No, or I think they find a project that maybe is moving faster or slower, or is using they might change their technology stack, and that's absolutely fine. I think committing to a project or contributing to a project today doesn't mean you're stuck with it forever. But if you stay with it for a few weeks, a few months, I think people will get more value out of it, and they'll be able to add more value. And then they can move on. But if you try and kind of jump around, I see people just wanting to do typo fixes across 100 projects, then they're not going to get much out of it, and vice versa. So I love typo fixes. There are probably loads of typos in my project, so please go and fix those. But then after that, try and get involved a bit more and add more and more value is all I'm saying.
Yes, this is an interesting point. I don't know if we should expand on this or we should head to the next question, but a lot of people, what happens with them when it comes to open source is that they go for a very easy problem, which is very useful to start with, because yes, it's helping you get to know the overall structure of open source, or get to know like how do you make things work here. But once you have fixed the typos, or once you have fixed the documentation, head to the next level. People need you to do tougher things. But okay,
exactly.
Let's also talk about as a beginner, when you join a project, you probably join a project as a maintainer, as a person who's looking into keeping the project alive. So fixing bugs, fixing the small bugs, making sure that you gain some reputation before you go for the big stuff. So what do you think are some of the benefits that a person has when they're maintaining projects?
They really get to see the flip side. They get to see, as I mentioned before, like the automation. They'll see the benefit of automation. they'll see how a good issue and a good pull request looks like. I'm not just talking in terms of code changes, but how it gets raised and how it gets collaborated on. They'll get to see the other side because they'll think, oh, that one's better than that one, not necessarily because of the changes, but how it's been raised. Got a screenshot, animated GIF. They've kept it small. Like, I think some people think that the changes have to be big. They don't. They have to add value. It doesn't matter how many lines have changed. And to give an example on that, we had someone who said, I'm going to work on the contributing MD file. I'm going to do it. I'll come back in a month. It's going to be like 1 or 2 pages long. It's going to be amazing. It's like, whoa. That's like 1 or 2 months with no value to the project. There's no file there at the moment. If you create the file and put one line in there that says, any questions, please start a discussion, or any questions, join us on Discord, whatever it is, that's already adding value like immediately. And so it is about adding value to the project. And once the file is there with one line, then it's easy to review. We can get that merged in literally minutes. Whereas if it's 1 or 2 pages, someone has to read it. There's going to be a lot of back and forth and conversations and so forth. So we can get it in sooner, then other people can start contributing because the file is there and other people can start adding value. And so I highly recommend everyone to focus on adding value, not on the size of the pull request. And I think that's important. And typos do add value because if someone doesn't speak English as their first language, I've seen people say, I've been Googling this word and I can't figure out what it means because they don't realize it's a typo. They think it's a word they don't know in that language. So fixing typos is important. But like you said, it's a place to start and to get used to the project, get used to the community, and then kind of definitely build up and work from there. Then to kind of do bug fixes, add small features, and so forth. But being a maintainer, you can learn so much. I highly recommend. I mean, I think a lot of people are maintainers. Like everyone in the chat, if you could let us know, have you customized your GitHub profile yet? If you have, you're a maintainer because someone could submit some changes and improvements to your repo, which we do on live streams, by the way. So if you haven't customized it yet, then just create the repo, which is the same name as your username, and have the default template. That's it. But then it allows other people to start making contributions to your customized profile, but they can't make the contribution if the repo doesn't exist. And you will just learn so much by being a maintainer. I cannot express that enough. But you don't have to have, people say, I want 10,000, stars and 1,000 forks. There are downsides to having that. I get 1,000 GitHub notifications every week. And so I always wanted more stars, more forks, and more this. And I love getting that, don't get me wrong. But there is the overhead now of all the admin of doing that. I'm coding less and being more of a maintainer. It's a good problem to have, but I'm learning so much by doing the other things. Like I need to promote people in the community to be maintainers now. So a lot of the time when I come to these 1,000 notifications, most of them have been taken care of by the community. Otherwise, me getting back to people slowly is not very nice for people not to get feedback sooner. So big shout out to the EddieHub community for being awesome maintainers on various projects, because it really helps me and helps them as well. And I've even seen some of my clients say, oh, this person stands out, this person's doing some great work, and this person's doing this. And I said great work, I didn't say great coding, because it isn't just about coding. And they've reached out to them directly and they go, what, they're a student? It's like, they're a student? I thought they were like 5-6 years experience. And they're like, when you kind of when you leave studying, if you want a job, give us a shout, sort of thing. And these are for companies in America and stuff. And so I think it's great. People don't realize that getting involved in open source, getting involved in discussion, Discord, etc. There are companies there and hiring managers there, and my clients are in our Discord, for example, like lots of them. And so I think when people make a joke or something that's a bit like on the edge, I say do realize, keep it professional, because you could hinder yourself. You want to help yourself. You don't want to hinder yourself. So yeah, sorry, I digress a lot. I get too excited.
No, absolutely. I mean, I should say yes, absolutely. It's like I said no for you speak a lot. You're absolutely right. I can't explain myself. Maybe, I don't know how to say this. It's like all of the things that you've said are things that I learned, and I saw people learning after they joined an organization and spent about 3 or 4 months, right? So for the first 4 months, they learned how to communicate, and then they started learning the best practices of coding. And what you say is like having your own startup. You're managing people, you're trying to empower people to actually do the stuff. and you can't do it all alone. Now you have an entire community which is there to both empower you, but also like depends on your guidance. So this is super interesting to hear about. It's like giving out free experience, and the other thing that you said about jokes, that really strikes a chord with me, because when I joined an organization where people would come in from computer programming, the way that we would test them would be just computer programming. They would join the organization and they would make jokes which were not just edgy, but they were like a little weird. So we had to tell them that, hey, you can't do this on chat because this is being recorded. The other thing is you probably shouldn't be making jokes like this. So it's interesting, like all that development already happening before they leave college, before they join a company, is absolutely amazing. And another thing that you said about organizations hiring from people who are famous in GitHub, or who have contributed to open source,
but not even famous. Like I think it's not about, hey, I need so many followers, I need so many stars in my project. It's about the value. It really, really is.
That's absolutely true, because when you look at startups in India also, we know what computer programming is and how important it is and how nice it is. But at the end of the day, we need work done right now. And the biggest proof for that is open source contributions. So when we are going through profiles, this is a secret for interview ready sourcing and filtering. When we are going through profiles, we just have a look at what's the GitHub profile like and what have they been doing. That's the decider. It doesn't matter whether they are 1800 or 1900 on Codeforces. It's basically about, okay, this person's going to join the organization. They already know how to communicate effectively. It's evident in their resume. It's evident on their GitHub profile. Let's hire this person. And I'm shocked with the quality of students that are coming out now. Like 4 years ago, I don't think students on average were this skilled. Now, because of open source, they're at another level. So I'm amazed by what it's done.
The level of the students now is amazing, which is great, because it's going to be such a game changer to really improve things further. So I think that's going to be absolutely awesome. And I think, like you said, keep things professional. And a lot of companies have open source projects. They realize the benefit of open source in their projects, at least their documentation, at least their SDKs. And so they need help with this. And so why not get paid eventually to do open source? I mean, it happens to me. I get paid to do open source. Like, it's brilliant. I'm helping my profile. So basically, I'm reinforcing my profile. It gives me content to share on YouTube, because all I do mainly is kind of open source. And I'm getting paid to do it. So it's great. And I want this for everybody else. Like, it's possible. And location doesn't matter. I'm from the UK, lived near London all my life. Currently, I'm spending the summer in Portugal from a beach. So I'm not in my usual setup. And then, back to London, kind of, in October, and heading to Asia for the winter. And so, your location doesn't really matter, which is what I love. I mean, the pandemic has been awful, but one positive thing is I think it's made companies realize that location doesn't matter. As long as you've got a good computer, camera, nice mic. By nice mic, it could be a mobile phone mic, whatever, it doesn't mean anything fancy, and a good enough computer. You could be anywhere. And digital nomads I just see increasing so much. It doesn't matter where you're from. It was what I love, because it's making the world smaller, which I think is brilliant. I've never collaborated with so many people around the world. In the last, kind of 12 to 18 months, it has exploded, and it's been amazing. And I want to geek out with more people. I want more people, amazing people, like you said, these amazing students. I want them to, why go to a 5-stage interview? Why can't you just jump to the last stage? Happens to me all the time. People say, hey, can you just jump on the call, have a chat? And I don't even do the interviews anymore. They just go to the chat, because they know what my code is like. They know how I collaborate with people. They've seen me on a live stream or video or Twitter space, so they know how I can speak and I can explain myself. Not perfectly, I'm still improving all the time. But my point is that, if you can stand up in front of a meeting of 3-4 people and explain on what you're going to work on for your daily stand-up that you would do within a team. I'm not talking about giving massive public speaking presentations, but you need to say, hey, today I want to work on this. I've got this blocker. Can somebody help me? And I think that's really, really important. And so, again, like you said, you're getting that experience while studying or while working, and you're just going so much faster that you can get a job offer and make jobs come to you. For one. 2, skip the long interview process and just go straight to the last step. Have a conversation with them and just chat numbers.
It's amazing. But Eddie, let's say that there's people like me out there who are, greedy capitalists. So, and we say that if I put any effort on anything, I need to have an investment. I need my investment returned quickly. So, or rather, I need a return on my investment definitely. So, if I'm entering open source and I want a lot of stars and I want a lot of forks, then what do I do? What's my strategy?
I'm gonna do a I'm gonna kind of do a pre-step, pre-answer, and then I'll come back to that. Okay, if that's okay. So,
Sure.
if people kind of go to the gym or and go, hey, I want to come out tomorrow looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger, it's just not going to happen. And if people say, hey, I'm only going to do this to get 1,000 stars or whatever, it's not going to happen overnight. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and they will learn so much along the journey. And an analogy that I always use for this, open source, your career is like brushing your teeth. If you can contribute to open source often, that's the best. Little and often, it's the best, right? You brush your teeth every morning and every evening, and you don't think about it. You don't go, oh my God, tonight I need to brush my teeth. What do? I need to plan it. It's a mission. No, you just brush your teeth without thinking, and you're adding value to your teeth. And then if you miss a night because you fell asleep on the couch, you're not going to wake up and your teeth have all fallen out. It's fine. So over a week, the benefit of brushing your teeth is quite small. But over a month, over a year, over 10 years, the benefit is huge. And that's what I want to say about open source. If you try and think, right, this weekend I'm going to build the next Google, it's not going to happen. You're going to burn out. It's not good mental health, etc. Just think of adding value to your project and somebody else's project. Ideally, if you can spend like 50% on each, roughly, it doesn't have to be perfectly 50-50, but adding value to your projects, adding value to somebody else's projects, then little and often. If you can try and do something every day, 30 minutes every day, that's great. If you do it like 3 times a week, twice a week, that's also great. But over time, the benefit will be huge. And to give another example in that you don't have to think, right, today I need to code something to make a pull request. No. If you've got an idea, start a discussion. Let the discussion kind of go on for a couple of days. Then from that, you might raise an issue. And then that's that contribution for that day. And then the day afterwards, you don't think, oh, what do I do? You go, oh, I've raised that issue. Now I'm going to make a pull request for that issue. So you're kind of like setting yourself up for success effectively. And if you start a few discussions, start a few issues, start a few pull requests, like stagger them, then by the time you get feedback on one, you're waiting for feedback on one, you've got feedback on the other, and you can kind of keep these little things going. And you don't want anything, too big. So to go back to your question, how can I get those stars and forks and so forth? It's being involved. People, it's social coding is GitHub strapline. You cannot, don't try and spam, go to Twitter and Discord and just spam your links. Start my project. People will do the opposite. It's like the hard sell, right? If someone came up to you and go, hey, buy my service, you're going to go, no, thank you, go away, goodbye. Whereas if they see you adding value, they're going to, say with Twitter and so forth, if they see you adding value, they're going to say, what is this person up to? And they're going to go have a look and they go, oh, this is quite interesting. I'm going to start their project. And so by all means mention it, but I think people who do the hard sell, it doesn't work. And I've seen that firsthand. I see people who go into Discord and just every day, start my project, just the same project over and over again. And the stars don't move. Actually, they get unstars because they go, oh, I have started that before. This is annoying. Let me unstar it. And it goes backwards. So the whole point is, have issues with labels. Like even if it's only you working on the project, have an issue. Otherwise, if someone comes to the project, they won't know where to start. So log issues for yourself. One, you'll get green squares for yourself. So it's great. And then have labels on them. Good first issue, help wanted because you're stuck, or whatever it is. And then let other people come and pick up some of those issues. Don't do the easy issues on your project, because then how are other people going to get involved in your project? And then search for good first issues on other projects and get started. And trust me, it will just snowball from there. You'll meet people, you'll meet projects, etc. and so forth. Hopefully that answers your question.
That's a really, really interesting path that you just mentioned for. Yeah, it's also the same with the YouTube channel. Like if you start a YouTube channel and then you want 1 million subscribers, well, you might get 1 million subscribers, yes, but the chance of that is really, really low. And yeah, there's no way that you're going to go to the gym and lift one weight and go like, oh my God, my shirt ripped off. I'm too much now. It's one of those things that people who go to the gym, like very rarely, they have this thought often that if I work out this much, I hope I don't get too bulky. Okay, that's not really a problem here. But okay, finally, Eddie, like this is something which is super important for a lot of people for various reasons. If you're looking to contribute in open source, apart from building your profile and apart from building a network, a brand, a community, can you also make money off this? You have
I
touched
love
on
this.
this, of course, in terms of jobs and stuff, but yes, actual
I
money.
love I love this question. Let's dig deeper. So the answer is yes, I do it. I've done it for years and I love it. I've never worked a day in my life since. Obviously I work, but for me it's fun,
You do
right? I'm
work,
geeking
yes.
out. But I'm geeking out with the community, and I get paid to do it. So it's amazing. So yes, it's possible, and there are a few ways. There are the GitHub sponsors. I think it's getting rolled out to more and more countries. I think it's around 40 now. If you sign up to it, and people say, hey, I'm not going to bother signing up to GitHub sponsors, and what that means is it's a bit like Patreon but on GitHub. GitHub take no commission, which is amazing. So someone sponsors you $10 a month, you're going to get $10 a month. And people say, oh, I'm not going to sign up for this, no one's going to want to sponsor me. I want to sponsor people sometimes, and they don't have GitHub sponsors. And I'm like, I want to give you money. It might not be a lot, but it adds up, right? So, I have people giving me $1 here, $1 there, but I'm getting like $100 a month now. And I actually have a video on it, kind of, taking screenshots and talking about the journey. And give people the opportunity to give you money. And I think on GitHub, it's becoming more and more aware of it, and companies are becoming more aware. And if you want to sponsor someone, great. But a tip for sponsoring someone, if you have like $10 and you want to sponsor someone, don't give it to that one person. Spread it out. So that's what I say to all my sponsors, especially the ones who sponsor me like $5 or $10. I say, please, if you only have that, then just give me $1 and sponsor 4 or 5 or 9 other people with the rest of it, because it just creates the awareness, gets things moving, and our companies are slowly becoming aware of this and hopefully doing the same as well. And GitHub are really trying to push that to make companies do that. So you can get it from GitHub sponsors is one way to make money and for you to get all of it. And people want to sponsor. You might help someone. I had so many people in the community who helped me, and they say, oh, I don't really help that much. I'm like, you help me so much. You just don't realize how much you help me. And I think people undervalue the contribution they do. And I think that's really, really important. So GitHub sponsors. Another way is, clients, companies finding you to offer jobs to you. I get job offers on a daily basis. I'm talking from FAANG companies, from small startups, all over the place, saying, hey, we love what you do. Can you do the same for us? And I'm able to select my clients, select my project. Like if a project uses Jira, I ain't using it. So I ain't going to pick up that project. So I can be really selective. And I want, the same for everyone watching as well. Those are probably the two main ways. There are other programs that are going on, but I haven't used them, so I can't really talk about them. But I think those are the two main ways. And you can find freelance work. Like I have asked people in the community to say, look, hey, I need help with this. How much would you think you charge for it? And they say, hey, it's going to be $50, $100, whatever. It's like, brilliant. Can you get that done for me, sort of thing? And it just snowballs from there. So many people have said, oh, Eddie, you were my first client. I was like, it wasn't really a client. It was that kind of a community thing. And I needed it done. I didn't have time, etc. And I knew they could do it. And then they get other clients from that because it builds up their confidence. Or if someone says, hey, Eddie, that was brilliant. How did you do that? I said, well, I didn't do it. They did it. And I kind of start pushing my clients to them. And that's how it kind of, snowballs and evolves. But I think people don't realize like the longer term benefit. It all overlaps, as you probably noticed, right? It's just a massive overlap with that.
Yeah, really,
but
totally.
And I think, sorry, go on.
No, I'm just putting that thought out there that it's like you throw a pebble in some really complicated system, and then you never know what's going to happen. But in this case, you know that something good is going to happen because you have put in the effort. It's almost like building yourself every day. Eventually it's impossible not to do well. Yeah.
Exactly, because you're always learning, and if you do something that isn't great, someone might make a suggestion. So you've learned something. That's the the feedback, the improvement. So you make the change. A company might see the improvement you made and say, "Hey, I like that improvement you made. We want something similar." Or you've used these tools together. How did you get that doing? And you're thinking, "Well, I didn't know how to do it. Someone helped me do it." but now I know how to do it. I can take on that client and so forth. So it's really this wheel, this machine that just keeps adding value. Like it's interest. Imagine like putting I don't know, $100 in the bank and just the more you contribute to open source and get involved in the community and network, it just keeps getting 10%, 10%, 10%, just keeps getting added all the time. And before you know it, it's a massive number. And like to put something out there for people, if you want to go get a job at a company, you want to go freelancing, whatever it is, people always negotiate down. In the last 8 years, 6-8 years, since I've really been pushing open source, socials and putting content out there, and I'm not creating content, I'm documenting my journey, etc. and so forth. I have the opposite problem. People negotiate up. So I turn work away and I say, look, I can't, I'm too busy. They say, well, we'll pay you 25% more. It's like, so what I'm trying to say to people, it's hard to get started. Get started. You'll get clients coming in. They might negotiate you down, or jobs that negotiate you down. But after a while, they're gonna not even negotiate. They're gonna offer you what you asked for. Then after a while, after that, they're gonna start, demand's gonna go up, and you're not gonna have enough time, and then they're gonna start negotiating up. And so that's what I really want for the awesome collaborative community who are here, asking questions, here to learn. I think they're already succeeding, right? These great questions. Asking a question in a live stream is quite scary, but it helps other people. I guarantee you other people are thinking of that same question, but were too nervous to ask, or were doing cooking and were watching a live stream and couldn't ask the question. Like, it adds so much value. We were doing a live stream and giving away swag, and someone asked so many amazing questions that I was actually disappointed that I didn't cover those topics. They actually updated some of my talks to include those, and they won swag for asking so many amazing questions. So again, that added value to the conversation, to the community. So people think that asking questions isn't adding value. If it's asking the same question that's been asked 10 times before, like on that same live stream, then maybe that isn't adding value. But if it hasn't been asked, then do ask the question, because it probably, 50% of the other people are probably thinking the same question.
Totally makes sense. Yeah, it takes a lot of guts to ask a question, especially in front of a crowd, because at least I feel happy when I ask a good question. So Eddie, I think let's take a couple of questions from the chat for the next 5 minutes, and then we can conclude our thoughts. But let me find an interesting question now. Also, guys, just expanding on what Eddie said, this is true for nearly every field that you will see, whether it's farming, whether it's medicine. The top 20% does a lot of work and therefore is really, really sought out. So what happens is when you get good,
Sorry, go on. Please carry on.
So well, just expanding on that, it's like, okay, you're let's say at the bottom 10 percentile. No one cares. That's when you're starting. Then as you keep moving forward, there comes a point when you become so valuable that everyone is chasing you. Everyone needs you because you do like 80% of the work. The top 20% is doing a huge amount of work. So people are ready to fly you down. People are ready to negotiate up. People are ready to give you extra stuff. Oh, you want this premium subscription? Yeah, sure, go ahead. So that's one of the things.
If I may be rude and slightly challenge and play devil's advocate on what you're saying about the 10% at the bottom that people don't care about too much, I believe they do, because they want to see people who are, you can see them have potential. Like we have so many people in for example, in the Eddie Hub community that even my clients have said, I'm going to keep an eye on that person. They're just starting out, but wow, they're already adding value. They're asking the right questions. They're documenting their journey. Like to give an example, if you're learning something at the moment, take a screenshot of the code you're writing and share it on Twitter and say, hey, I learned this today, and just, put a couple of bullet points in the tweet. Take people on your journey so you can stand out, and you can stand out as a beginner as well. And another example, if you want to kind of grow your community, grow your network, what you could do is you could take a screenshot of this live stream and tag both of us. And if you just do that, we'll like it, but we probably won't reshare it because it doesn't add value to our network. But if you take a screenshot, share it, and then put 1 or 2 or 3 bullet points to say, hey, I learned this. Hey, I'm going to get started in open source today because of this, or whatever it is. You give a reason, then we will both think, oh, okay, that adds value to our community who didn't see the live stream because there's 2 or 3 points there. We're going to retweet it, reshare it, and then your network will grow. Again, it's just not only does open source, help build ourselves up, but it helps build our network, as we've said, in our community. But on social media, we can all help each other as well. But it needs to add value. The amount of people that DM me and say, "Hey, can you retweet my tweet?" It's like, but it doesn't add value to my community, my network. Why would I do that? It doesn't have to be about me, but if I see something adding value, then I'm going to want to reshare it. So it needs to always add value to do that. So yes, just my suggestion on that note.
I totally agree that let's say the bottom 10%, to put it in a very blunt way, is the one with full potential. But then there's the people who are like really sought after. They're in the top 20%, and there's a reason why they're there, because they have been here and they've come here. So yes, I'm ready to pay a lot more for these guys. But yeah, you guys are really exciting. It's like fresh football players in a new league. Like, wow, this person's really exciting. But you're not going to bring out the millions just then. Yeah. Right. So I think there's a few people who are talking about writing blogs now. There's a few people who are talking about how do they choose an open source project to contribute to. That's an interesting question. Like if you have to go right now and choose an open source project, are you going to do it based on the skills that you have right now? Or are you going to do it on the number of stars that the project has, or how nice people are in that project? So
I think there are quite a few variables.
I'm sorry.
I think there are quite... Sorry.
Go. No.
It's okay. So I think there are quite a few variables. You bring up some points. So sorry to interrupt you. I think stars are nice to have. They don't really mean anything though. So I wouldn't think, oh, this project's got 1 star, I'm not going to contribute to it, or this project's got 1 million, I'm going to contribute to it. Like it's irrelevant. It's just a vanity metric. How nice the project and the community are, I think, is important. How supportive they are, I think that is important, definitely. The technology you use, you might contribute to a project because you know that technology. But you also might contribute to another project because you don't know that technology and you want to learn. That's also another great way to learn. If you can add value to the project by asking questions or trying to improve the documentation, when you want to learn that technology, people in the community are going to help you get up to speed with it. So you're going to learn a new technology. So there's that. There's the speed of the project as well, which is important. See what projects your colleagues and friends are working on. I think that's a really good one as well, because they're more likely to kind of help each other, and I think that's really, really important. And if you're new to a project, your fresh perspective is really, really important. So for example, on our API project, it runs its automation in GitHub Actions, but also you can run it locally. But we always made the assumption that people have Docker installed for it to work, until someone came along and said, my computer's not powerful enough to run Docker. And we were like, oh, we didn't realize, we thought we were being inclusive, great document. Well, I say good documentation, I won't say great, it was always improvements to be made. But and we didn't realize that. So that question really helped us. So we spent time and effort to try and help people run it against the cloud, against the data stacks, Astra DB, rather than within their Docker container. And so we worked on that. We still got improvements to be made, and that's where people giving feedback is super, super helpful.
Totally makes sense. So it brings in a lot of opinions. Yeah, totally. Okay. Final question. I think I'll just take one which was asked a little earlier. It's somewhere over here, I'm sure. It was about your trip to Portugal? No, it was something else.
Oh, this is Cedric. Hi, Cedric. Awesome to have you here.
Okay. All right. Let's pick this one up because I can't find it. This is a really good message. Just joking, Gaurav. We love you, man. Okay, yeah, this is a good question. Yes, but let's go for the next one. I'm a big data developer. What are some good open source projects I can check?
Elasticsearch. There is Data Stacks is Astra DB. It's Stargate. It's written on top. It's written on top of Cassandra. So it allows. They've got this layer that sits on top of Cassandra, which is another open source database of big data, which is by Facebook. I think it's now an Apache project, and
Yes.
they allow people to connect via REST, via GraphQL, or via Cassandra query language. They've written this open source project. They want people to contribute, and they want to help people contribute. So I think definitely look at DataStax. They are in my Discord as well. Their DevRel team are there, so you can look at some of their projects and get involved. They also want SDKs for all the different languages to connect to it. Elasticsearch is another good one. So yes, that's a good one. There are so many out there, definitely.
Yeah, Eddie, just to confirm, AstroDB is ASTRODB?
Sorry, no, Astra, ASTRA DB. It's by
Okay,
DataStax.
I'll
I
just
can,
remove this one. Yeah. Who's this Gaurav Sen? He got the question wrong. How do we delete this stuff? We can block that user, but it's AstraDB, yes. Oh, it's, yes, by Eddie.
and I
That,
can share a link if that helps. I'll do it to you in a
that would
private
be
chat so
awesome. I think I'll just pin
you can
it.
share it.
I mean, if there's some projects that you would like to share, we can just pin it on after the live stream is done. But
Awesome.
that's awesome. So, guys, if you have any doubts or suggestions or comments on this, do let us know in the comments. We are about to end the live stream, but thank you so much for coming here. Thank you for spending your time with me and Eddie, and thank you, Eddie, for coming here and making this such a special session. It's something that a lot of people in third and fourth year India, and also after, I mean, at work, want to contribute to and want to do to improve themselves, but we don't know where to start. So thanks for coming, and wishing you the best of luck for the weekend.
Thank you so much for having me on your channel, on your awesome channel. It's great. I love the work you do. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed geeking out with you and your community. I will. I think my YouTube link's in the description below, and I will put a comment with some of the DataStax links as well to their open source projects if people want to use it, and some other links we talked about, API projects and so forth, and to answer some of the questions.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, so I will put that in the comment. If you're able to pin it, that's great. I'll do that straight after the live stream. Thank you all so much again for geeking out.
Okay, guys. Yeah. Thanks. See ya. Bye-bye.